Good evening. Welcome, everybody, to The Unstoppable Singer. I am Danielle Tucker. I'm a singer, a vocal coach, and a lead singer with the Mighty Untouchables band. And I produced and hosted the Pandemic Proof Singer Summit 1 and 2. And now I am producing and hosting this show that you're watching now, The Unstoppable Singer. The Unstoppable Singer is an interview style show where I follow the lives of real life professional singers. And these singers have made incredible achievements in their careers and lives. And we cover topics, everything from voice work, making money, booking gigs, songwriting, recording, session work, and a lot more. And we really focus on going from surviving to thriving in the business and safeguarding our careers. So if this sounds like something interesting to you, please stick around because I am about to introduce my guest tonight. And this is going to be really exciting. I'm super excited to talk to her. It is Leyla Hoyle. Born in Lima, Peru, Leyla moved to Los Angeles, California at the age of 20 and started a very successful career as a studio singer and voiceover artist. She's recorded background vocals for a very impressive list of international stars such as Gloria Estefan, Justin Timberlake, Chris Stapleton, Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez, Juan Gabriel, Celine Dion, and Andrea Bocelli, Mark Anthony, Julio Iglesias, Luis Miguel, Enrico. Oh my gosh, this list is absolutely incredible. She has also sang at the Oscars with Mary J. Blige. She's been featured in movie soundtracks such as Ice Age 2, Happy Feet, The Emperor's New Groove, Nacho Libre, Along Came Polly, Seabiscuit, and recently ENCANTO, the Academy Award winner as the best animated featured film. And she not only sang music written by Lin-Manuel Miranda in this, but also has a solo on We Don't Talk About Bruno, which has been number one for weeks upon weeks upon weeks and is definitely a household favorite here in my home for sure. Man, there is so much to talk about with Leyla. I'm going to bring her on right away so we can dive into our conversation. Hello, Leyla.
Hi, Danielle.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. It's so excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you. It's really an honor that you take the time to do
Thank
this and come
you.
chat with me tonight. Man, your list of credentials in your bio is so lengthy and impressive. I hate to leave anything out, but I hope that we'll get a chance to, highlight a lot of those experiences that you've had with so many amazing artists. Before we get to all of that, though, tell me in a nutshell what's going on in your career and life these days, right now.
Oh my goodness. Well, right now, to tell you the truth, I am very focused. Like I share in my bio with you that I'm very involved in my church.
Hmm.
So starting now, it's a very busy season
Yeah.
planning all the events coming. So production wise for me has been a little bit slow. So that at church has kept me really busy. Yeah.
That's great. I know singing is so seasonal. I feel like as singers we have our holiday season where we're doing a lot of those of us that do church work are doing a ton of church stuff, and then we've got our corporate season, our wedding season, like all the
Yes.
seasons. But
Yeah.
I guess we're really fortunate though for that it's a little bit something different all the time. So you are on a worship team there, leading worship.
Yeah, actually, I'm a part of a big church. The name is Shepherd Church. Our main campus is here in Porter Ranch, California.
Mhm.
But we have two other satellite campuses, and one is in the Woodland Hills area, and I'm the worship director there at the Woodland Hills area. So I have to be in charge basically of all the music there. So
Mhm, mhm. Awesome, that's great. Did you grow up singing in the church? Is that, somewhere that you started
no,
from? No?
no, not at all. When I was growing up in Peru, the main basically the country is Catholic, but not devoted. They're not like really committed to their faith. So basically, just I would learn a few hymns here and there, but nothing like really deep into the church.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until a few years ago that I really became like really, really involved, you know. So I didn't
Yeah.
grow up in the church. I came to my faith late in my life,
Mm.
actually.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah. Well, it's amazing. Having been in the church for decades myself, how music in the church has evolved, especially in the Christian churches, and just how it's not your days of volunteer people from the congregation coming up to do the singing every week. I mean, churches have really gotten really sophisticated with their music programs and the worship teams and just the production of them. What are your thoughts on that? Do you like how music's progressed in the church?
You know, yes, up to a certain point, I try to keep a balance.
Mhm.
Yes, I try to, like, every time that I can, when I'm recruiting singers or musicians, I want to make sure that, for example, a singer, that's their gifting. You know, I just don't want to put somebody that doesn't, that feel that would like to do it, but basically is not their strongest
Right.
thing to do. So I am very meticulous about having like auditions to make sure that
Mhm.
you don't set up anybody for failure, you know.
Yes.
And I just want to make sure that whoever is there, first of all, that they have a gift that
Mhm.
you can also, as a leader, nourish
Mhm.
and help them grow, not only with their gifting, but also if I see that somebody has a potential to become a worship leader, also to start nurturing in that area so they can just grow, you know.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I can see that too, and I know, having seen it progressed over the years. I know that there's an argument that I hear, or a debate that I hear a lot, that oh, it should be congregation based. It should be just volunteer. It shouldn't be such a show or a perfect thing. But it's so I'm sure there's valid points in that argument. But when you step back and think about what it is that you're trying to accomplish with the music at church, you really have to look at the greater good as a whole, because number one, people are going to be attracted to the church in the first place if they are receiving the gift of excellent music every week. if,
Totally.
if it's
Totally. Like that was
inspiring.
my experience. Like I mentioned, you know, I came to my faith very late in my life.
Mhm.
When I was looking for churches to go, a church that I would feel comfortable, and especially as a new Christian, you know, I was looking for something that it wasn't like too charismatic, because that could be like a little bit overwhelming.
Mhm.
And I went to Shepherd Church for the first time. The first thing that made such a huge impact on me was the quality of the music.
Mhm.
You know, so I can definitely speak firsthand that I decided to stay there. My family and I started going there because we felt comfortable with the music, and the level of music
Mhm.
quality was something that my whole family is very musical. We all were able to relate and to feel comfortable, you know,
Yeah.
like the sounds, the songs, the singers. It was something that we wouldn't just go like, "Ooh," you know.
Cringy. Yes.
It's something that as musicians that we felt really comfortable, and it was really soothing for us, you know.
Mhm, mhm, yeah, and it's inspiring. I
Yeah,
mean, when you hear great music, that's what you're really trying to evoke emotion in the congregation. You're trying to uplift everybody and avoid a cringy experience at all
yeah,
costs.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I bet they were pretty blown away with you when you came through the doors and offered your services as a singer. Is this a church that is known for having high level professional singers?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
they're very particular about it, and you know, when I went there, I had to audition, and the first time when I went, I just wanted to be part of the praise team. I wasn't even thinking about assuming any leadership position. So
Mhm.
I just went to do what I felt really comfortable to do, which is background vocals and be part of the praise team and be the backup singer for the worship leader, you know. So
Mhm.
yeah, there was a whole audition process. But when I audition the singers at the campus, the satellite campus where I'm at, I make it a little bit more simple. Like, you know, as singers, when someone starts singing, you only need just a few bars as they're singing to know, like, oh, they got it. No, they don't.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, so I have come up now with a system where I can just quickly go, that is not as nerve-wracking for whoever is auditioning. So
Mm-hmm.
so they can give their best, and at the same time I can get a sense if if they can sing harmonies, if they can stay in their parts and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And just but at the same time make it a friendly environment, where they don't feel a little bit intimidated.
Right.
When I auditioned many years ago, it was like in front of like a panel, like the main worship leaders there auditioning all the singers. So
Oh.
do terrible at auditions. I don't like auditioning. It's like, I feel it brings me back like when I was at school, like the teacher taking an oral test, making notes, looking at I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's I can't complain. It's being a beautiful journey, actually.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that you have a system that's a little kinder in the process of doing that. Auditioning is a hard thing, and I'm so surprised that as a culture, audition and judging is such a thing for us. We I don't know why it is that we want to subject ourselves to to that much criticism, but it really has become addicting, and that is a different mindset for singers because as an artist you want to be able to step out on the stage and create a performance, engage with your audience, create an experience for everyone. The last thing you want to do is be getting in the head of somebody who is potentially critiquing you or judging you. That's a completely different mind trip.
I'm not good at that. I mean, the pressure that I feel, it's like, it's I don't do well. I don't do
Yeah.
well. Probably I'm also my worst critic.
Mhm.
So I tend to be really bad on myself sometimes. But in my mind, I have such a hard time with it. I have no problem singing in front of 10, 20,000 people if I have to.
Mhm.
But when it comes to sitting in front of a panel of three people that they're going to be taking notes and looking at me, to
Mhm.
me, that
Yeah.
to me, like, I don't do well.
It's personal at that point.
Singing is such a personal thing,
Yeah.
like verses, for example. I also do voiceovers, and I can do so many auditions for voiceovers, and that to me, I'm not nervous about it because
Mm.
it's not as intimate as when you sing. Sing
Right.
comes from here. So voiceovers, it's okay. I can do auditions. I don't mind the criticism, but with singing is completely different.
Gosh, that's a great point. That's really, really interesting because, yeah, talking, I guess the acting aspect of it, it is not as vulnerable as singing. The singing, that's a full body expression, not
Yes,
as much as talking, right? Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, I never thought of it that way. Yeah. Well, let's step back and go back to your roots. Tell me where you got your start as a singer. Did you come from a musical family, or how did you get your start in the business?
No, well, like some of my my uncles, they would sing just for fun, but none. Well, yes, there was one of my dad's cousins that I didn't get to meet, and she already passed away. She was a very well-known songwriter from Peru, and some of her songs were very well known, or are very well known in Latin America.
Okay.
But I never got to meet her. She was more well known as a songwriter more than a singer, but she could carry a tune and she could carry her songs. But basically, I just had this passion for singing. Well, when nobody in my family really
Hmm.
were part of it. I would be singing and driving everybody crazy at home as I was like teenager, singing and la, 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 singing out loud, and
Mhm.
putting the record, the turntable, and blasting the music that I drove everybody crazy because I would sing all day long.
Mhm.
So that's how it started, and then a friend of mine, who at that point was giving me a little bit of music lessons. Back then, we didn't have the resources that we have now.
Hmm.
When it comes to learning music and all that. So a friend of mine was teaching me, and he was already kind of like playing gigs and that. So he is the one that kind of like got me started.
Mm.
He recommended me with a band, and I started doing some like corporate gigs back home, and let me tell you, corporate gigs back home, they don't end at 1 o'clock in the morning like in here, or midnight. No, those are like, they start at 11 p.m.
Oh my God.
They end up sometimes 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes they may ask you for an extra hour. Like they
Oh.
would end at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I was 19, so I had the stamina and the energy to do it. But even then, it was, it will be rough. But then I always knew that I was gonna come to the United States. So basically, my whole life, I um, started planning, like saving money as I would work in an office or work at a gig, saving all that money to try to pay for my ticket and some money to start here,
Hmm.
and that's how it basically started. So I knew that I wanted to do studio singing. I knew I didn't quite really want to do like uh, gigs, live gigs, and I did it for a while, but it took me some time to get the connections. Actually, it was rough at the beginning, coming from a different culture, from Latin America, and then coming here, kind of like, I spoke English, but still I had to get my ear used to like the real pronunciation from here, and getting the contacts. I didn't know anybody really, so it took me a while to get to know that one person that believed in me and helped me get through the door. But
Hmm.
it took me maybe after 7 years of living here in this country and trying to make it, working in whatever I could, cleaning houses or being a waitress, and then like trying to find a little job here, a little job there, and singing at night, and until finally I was able to meet my dear friend. His name is Kenny O'Brien. He allowed me to do a one session with him, and then after that he started calling me a little bit more and started testing me to see, like, okay, let's see if you can handle this. Somehow
Hmm.
he I don't know, he felt that he could start calling me. He gave me
Hmm.
really an opportunity, and basically everything I know when it comes to studio, I owe it to him, because he's very meticulous. He um like very meticulous, like in like all the details as a background vocals, matching the
Hmm.
cutoffs, everything. So I had a great schooling with him.
Hmm. Yeah.
But that's basically how it all started. At that point, like back in the early '90s, basically that's when I started.
Hmm.
Uh, and at that point, the industry was at its peak. The Latin industry was at its peak. Like so many recordings between jingles and productions, so much happening, which is
Hmm.
not as much what is happening now.
Right, right. That's very cool. So when you came to the United States, did you go directly to the Los Angeles area or where did you land first?
I landed first in Miami, and I
Okay.
stayed there for about 6 months, and then I moved to Boston.
Hmm.
Um, and that was a shock for me, because completely different weather. I got it. I think that I could say that I got even a little bit depressed of the shock, the culture shock, the
Right.
weather, everything. I got accepted at Berklee College of Music, but
Hmm.
unfortunately, I couldn't finish. I had a student visa, but I was basically living on my own, just trying to make a living. So I couldn't afford it anymore. So then that's
Hmm.
when I decided to come to Los Angeles, and when I came to Los Angeles, that's when it started feeling a little bit more like home, because the weather
Hmm.
is very similar to Lima. You see a lot more Hispanic people, and so I started feeling like, okay, I think I can stay. Okay,
Mhm.
I think I can move forward now. So.
Yeah. And did you make that switch to LA specifically for career reasons?
Well, at that point, it was what it made sense. At that point, I was dating someone that we were living in Boston together, and then
Mhm.
we came here to Los Angeles because he was a musician. He passed away not too long ago, unfortunately.
Mm.
Uh, and it made sense for the both of us to move here because he was also trying to make it as a musician, as I was trying to make it as a singer. So it made sense at that point for the both of us to
Mhm.
make that move from Boston to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah.
I wanted to back up just a little bit and touch on something that you had said about early in your career, knowing that you wanted to be a studio singer.
Yes.
So, would you say that like early on when you had your initial aspirations as a singer, were you picturing yourself becoming a star? Is that something you had ambition for, or were you really just more interested in the actual act of like having a singing job? Because most of us, we start out, we don't even know that session singing is a thing.
Yeah.
We don't even know that that's an opportunity. But I understand that you were mentored by somebody who was in the music industry already. But what was that vision for your career?
Well, maybe when I was a teenager, and that you sing, probably, every teenager has that dream of one day becoming a star.
Mhm.
Um, but then when I was hit with the reality of like moving here to the United States, and having to face basically life on my own,
Mhm.
I just want to point out, way back then when I was growing up, the Latin culture is very overprotective. Like, especially as a daughter, you're very overprotected by your parents, and then all of a sudden come and face life on my own
Mhm.
was a shock. Was a shock. So then, even though when I was a teenager, I would dream, or maybe one day I can become a star and famous, you know. Somehow that dissipated. There was a
Mhm.
point where I just didn't want to. I didn't even think about it. I just somehow studio work, doing recordings. Um,
Mhm.
it's what kind of like started like catching my attention, and
Mhm.
I was very interested in that. Uh, because I did for a while, like I would sing at some clubs and things, but it was like really like so tiring. Probably also because I
Mhm.
also have a full-time job, and then having to sing at night, it was like I would go like many hours with many days with not much sleep.
Right. Yeah.
So then when studio work started happening, I knew that that was what I wanted to do. That
Mhm.
it somehow it made sense. I love the structure of the studio. I love that the creativity part, and like building up all the vocals and the background vocals, and
Mhm.
it really, I really love it. I really
Yeah.
love it. And once you hear everything, you go like, oh, it's, and then the teamwork, that you have
Mhm.
to learn to do as a background vocalist. It's technical, but it's
Mhm.
a form of art in itself. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know the whole experience of live performance and studio work, they're two different planets, that you're working on. Of course, I love live performance. I love the social aspect of it and the adrenaline and everything. But being in the studio too, it's a whole different social experience.
yes,
You have so much more space just to have fun and interact with the engineer or other singers, whoever's in the studio with you at the time. And it's definitely there's so much more space for creativity and using that those gifts that you have.
yes,
So I
yes.
can see why some of us definitely choose one path or another, wanting to be in the studio as your main thing or be on stage as your main thing.
And I think that as you are experiencing the whole process, of like
Mhm.
doing live gigs and then studio, somehow you start shifting in the direction that makes sense to you.
Mhm.
Like for example, I never really wanted to audition to go on tour. I never saw myself doing that. I don't know if it's because I just like being in town and being comfortable about just like, okay, you do the session, you go, you do the work, and then okay, once you're done, and
Mhm.
you go back home. So I don't know if it's that, but some of my friends, they've done touring, they've done all these amazing gigs, but that was never really my passion, to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So going back to, fast forward through your bio nowadays, I mean, you are singing on some major, major projects. Where would you say along your journey, once you're in LA and you're picking up a lot more session work, what were some of your kind of career breakthrough moments where the opportunities began um, becoming more, I guess, big league for you?
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned, my friend Kenny O'Brien,
Mhm.
definitely meeting him, when I met him, that was the beginning of everything. Because at that point, he's almost retired now, but at that point, he was at its peak. He was like, and most of the work that I've done is for the Latin industry,
Mhm.
and at that point, he was considered probably one of the top vocal arrangers in the um, Latin industry. And meeting him was, I would say, the breakthrough point for me,
Mhm.
because once he called me for that project, and he saw that I was able to do it, he kept on calling me, and somehow he liked the blend that his voice and my voice had. And from that point on, basically, since he was probably the top call at that point, that's through meeting him, that's when things started happening. And that's when I started like recording for all these artists, and then after that, once you meet producers or once you meet other singers, it also becomes like a word of mouth kind of thing,
Mhm.
that then they recommend you. And um, because it's not only the talent, it's also, I would say 50% is your talent and the other 50% is your attitude. If
Yes.
they don't get along with you, it doesn't matter how good you are, they just won't call you. If you're difficult to work with, they just don't want to work with you,
Right.
uh so um so thank goodness, I got along with most of the people that I met, and
Mhm.
that's how everything started happening, and then I was really blessed to get to meet like huge contractors from the general market, like Edie Lehman. I don't know if
Mhm.
that she would call me. She's the one that called me for Emperor's New Groove. She called me for part of Encanto. Also, Antonio Sol is the one that called me for the other part of Encanto, for the We Don't Talk About Bruno part. Uh,
Mhm.
and that's how slowly things started, the wheels started rolling, and it started happening. And then everything is basically by word of mouth.
Mhm. Yeah, that is really cool. I love that you mentioned 50% talent, 50% attitude. That's something we talk about on this program tirelessly because it really is true. I mean, obviously your skill set is so important and you really do, have to know your stuff and be good at what you do. But when you really think about the population of musicians that have a great skill set and really know their stuff, it's a lot. But they're not all easy to work with. They're not fun to work with. And so that is such a major factor in it. People hire people that they like and that they like to spend the hours with, and that they know that they can depend on, and that they know are not going to add to their workload,
Yes,
you know?
definitely, definitely. Because a producer wants to feel that what you're bringing your best. It's just, every
Mhm.
project to me is a special project. Doesn't matter the budget. If you're helping a producer and there is, for example, not much of a budget, that you're helping him with a demo, the effort that you put in it is as much as if they're paying you the top rate union gig. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's where your work, that's your stamp, that's your signature. Your voice is your signature. And
Mhm.
um it's so important that they feel that they can, like what you said, that they can count on you in all aspects, that you're willing to give the best of you
Mhm.
as you're doing the job.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, I would love to hear about some memorable projects that you've done. Like I said, your bio is just incredible. There, I mean, you've worked with just iconic, voices in throughout the years. Are there any projects in particular that stand out to you that were extra fun, extra not fun, or
Yeah.
some memories?
Well, one definitely, Encanto has been one of the
Mhm.
most memorable. Not because it was one of the most recent ones,
Uh-huh.
but really it was like that solo that I had on "We Don't Talk About Bruno." I mean, all of a sudden when the soundtrack came out, and we're like, oh, that's me. I didn't know, because when we were at the studio, they were trying all the girls for that
Yeah.
part, and then, like, all of a sudden, and then you don't hear anything else. You don't know what's
Uh-huh.
happening, and then just to all of a sudden, oh, that's my voice. That's me. I'm the fish lady.
I was gonna have to ask. I have to know which line is yours.
She told me my fish would die the next day, dead. That's
Oh
me. I'm
god.
the fish
My
lady.
daughters are gonna die when I tell them this.
But it was a total surprise. That was getting to work. I didn't get to meet Lin Manuel Miranda, but I got to meet Jermaine Franco, and oh boy, she is, what a talent.
Mhm.
When we did that section with her, she's incredible. And
Mhm.
she's humble. She is so approachable. Uh, and she knows. She
Mhm.
knows her thing.
Mhm.
So that was very memorable. Another thing, I've had the chance to work closely with a few artists, not singing, but coaching them, as
Oh,
they
yeah.
record.
Yes.
Yeah, I I th- I started working with Demi Lovato did a few years ago something in Spanish, so I work with her and I coach her in Spanish, and then I also sang background vocals for that same song that they needed background vocals, so I did the Spanish vocals in Spanish, but also
Mhm.
I got to work with Selena Gomez, and I'm actually working with her in a project that I can still not talk about. But like the last album that she did, that got nominated for a Grammy, she did an EP, all of it
Mhm.
in Spanish, and I was able to coach her in Spanish, basically, because she doesn't speak much Spanish. She knows a little bit here and there, a few words. Um, so I needed to coach her with a singer's perspective to make her understand the language,
Mhm.
and at the same time for her to, so she can make sense of, like, why the language flows like that, and tie
Mhm.
it melodically. Um, that was such a beautiful experience with her. She's so sweet. I
Mhm.
worked also with Christina Aguilera in 9 songs of the whole Spanish project that she did, and oh boy, what you hear, what you see. I mean, she opens her mouth and it's like you're
Wow.
you're I mean, first take, and it's like already like perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a jaw dropping kind of moment
Mhm.
when you're with her, and she still manages to make it even better and better and better and better. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's insane, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that has been memorable. Each artist is different, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, personality wise, but at the same time, each one of them is special in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I just had to kind of like learn to kind of like read them so I can be effective in communicating with them, and even though they don't speak the language, so that it can make sense to them and that they
Mm-hmm.
can feel comfortable. So the whole process was so unique and so beautiful to get to spend that time with each one of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So tell me more about your vocal coaching practice. Do you specifically consult with artists when it comes to dialect specifically, or do you
Yes.
kind of coach the whole singer, just technique wise, or, is that something that do you have an independent studio, or do you just contract on a basis?
No, no, no. Like they contract me. The times that I've worked with the few artists that I've worked, they contact me. They contract me for a specific project, and
Mhm,
it's mostly for them to understand the dialect. It's
mhm,
uh, if they're doing something in Spanish, is to be able to try to have them sing with the least accent possible, but at the same time, so they can feel comfortable. So whenever they have to perform it live, that they can feel confident enough to
yeah,
do it, you
mhm,
know, and because they are processing so many things, it's a whole new different language. Uh, and with a language that they don't know, you know, and they may be somewhat familiar, but they don't really speak it.
mhm,
So I have to find ways to make them understand why, like, certain words are pronounced this way, how you tie certain vowels together. And but I have to find even sounds in English that they can relate to
mhm,
into the new language. You
mhm,
know? So uh, there's not a set of rules for it.
mhm,
No, it's you just have to adapt it to each individual artist and to their
mhm,
personality, and to make them work through because it's a little bit nerve wracking for them. It's a whole lot of pressure
yeah,
because there are times that they get stuck, you know, and you just have to find the ways to help them get through that little
mhm,
bump, you know.
mhm. Yeah, well, speaking of nerve-wracking, I mean, what is it like though on your side when you get a phone call from someone saying like, "Oh, hey, can you come? We have this artist named Christina Aguilera in the studio." Maybe you've heard of her. Can you come work with her? Or I mean, Selena Gomez. What is that feeling for you when you get a call like that?
Oh my goodness. It is like, oh, uh, and like I told you before, I am my worst enemy. So the
Yeah.
first thing, like sometimes I just have to go like, no, Leyla, you can do this. But there is that part of me that sometimes I want to go like, oh, oh, because it's such a big responsibility. But, I've done it already enough times that I can get through my own insecurities.
Mhm.
And just like the first thing that I do, okay, send me the material, send me the lyrics. So then what I do is before I go and see them,
Mhm.
I take my time to like really kind of like uh, have like an overview of like, okay, this area might be a trouble area. I kind of like make my points and my marks ahead of time, like where could be a language barrier or
Mhm.
pronunciation barrier, because certain sounds that we have in Spanish you don't have in English,
Mhm.
so those are the notes that I'm taking ahead of time, to make sure that I can communicate effectively,
Mhm.
so that they can process it, they can process the sounds, and so that they can let them out, you know.
Right. Yeah. And so once you're there in the studio and you're meeting these iconic artists for the first time, is it intimidating to then start trying to offer the coaching techniques, to someone who's obviously knows what they're doing quite well, and you certainly don't have to name any names at all, but do you find that they are coachable and kind of open to receiving the
Like, yes, they are. My experience so far, who else I've worked with? Besides, I work also with Gwen Stefani. I did one song with her. And when they call you to do this, they are coachable. They know that they have the limitations, but at the same time, um, they want to be able to do their best. So
Mhm.
they already worked in their minds that this is a challenge, and they already know that they're going to have to be flexible, and they're going to have to allow me to carry them, you
Mhm.
know uh, even though, like some of them may be like for example, Christina Aguilera. I mean, it's like, what can you do, or what can you teach her vocally? There's
Right.
nothing, you know uh, but my experience with her was like really amazing, to tell you the truth. It was, uh, she knew what she wanted, but at the
Mhm.
same time, she was open to hear what I had to say. And uh, she let me, like, no, 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 because by instinct, she has already a great pronunciation. She has this, it's easy for her to grab it. Uh, so then, when there were, for example, maybe one word that she would have a slight problem,
Mhm.
I would be like, hey, listen, everything else is sounding so good that you can take care of this word. Let's
Mhm.
just focus on that word. And I know it's annoying. I know it's frustrating, but if you don't fix it, everything is so great with no accent. And
Mhm.
then that word is gonna, like, the accent is gonna jump, you know,
Yeah.
you know. So she was very open, very flexible. Same with Selena. With Selena, we recorded everything during the pandemic.
Uh-huh.
So I coached her. She was in New York. The recording engineer was in his studio, and I was here in my house, and we all connected to communicate via
Mm.
Zoom, but to record via audio movers.
Okay.
Uh, so everything was recorded remotely,
Mm.
So that was another thing, another challenge that I had to learn how to deal with.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that you do as you're working on it, like in real time, and you just have to find ways to be effective. And if
Mhm.
one way doesn't work, okay, let's be creative and let's do it this other way. And
Yeah.
you know so that's why I cannot really point out like which one was uh like my like the most memorable. All of them with these artists have been really, really memorable, because each one of them is so unique.
Mhm.
They have completely different personalities. And
Mhm.
uh, but it has been really, with each one of them, really beautiful to work with.
Yeah. Very cool. One thing that stands out to me that I was thinking about is that obviously, approaching a project with a major artist like that and kind of having to have the courage, first of all, to do it.
Yeah.
Um, that is, of all the singers that I've spoken with on this show, especially those that have, really reached or had great achievements in their careers and have really, had the longevity in their careers and show no signs of throwing in the towel at any time soon, despite all of the challenges in recent years and everything. The common thing that I see in all these singers is this just internal grit and courage and a willingness to step out of your comfort zone and tackle these projects that you weren't necessarily ever trained or schooled to do, but you have just enough gall inside of you to say like, yeah, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is that nerve, that we have inside of us that tells us that, yeah, you can do this, and that there really is no school for that. But it is those singers that are willing to step out of the comfort zone that get these snowball of opportunities come their way, just like you have.
Yeah, yeah. And it is, like I had enough experience doing studio work, so that
Mhm.
was a plus. I mean, of course, Spanish is my first language, so I think that gave me like the best of both worlds, because like just a dialect coach would have not
Mhm.
been able to do it, because
Right.
if they're not musical, how do you help them understand the melody plus the pronunciation,
Mhm.
um, and so I already had that as a plus, being a singer myself and
Yeah.
being in the studio and knowing like, okay, let's just punch this part of the word. Let's just punch the second half of the word.
Mhm.
Like coming up. So then okay, with engineer working alongside the engineer. Okay, let's comp this. Okay, this is okay, now we got it.
Yeah.
So yeah, enough the enough technical experience with being a singer and the language that I was able
Mhm.
to do it. And also, I think it's also using common sense into how to adapt to someone's personality, especially when you're talking about a major artist.
Yeah.
Well, you have to adapt, like some of them need more talking, some of them you better not do so much talking and just be down to the point and be
Mhm.
have a plan of action, let's put it that way. But some of them may need a little bit more of that emotional
Mm.
thing. So that's when you have to use that discernment of like, okay, where do I go, how much do I say or how much I don't say,
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It really is the importance of those soft skills, not necessarily the technical skills, which obviously are critical as well. But I think it's harder, for people, like yourself, who has such great self-awareness and that common sense and those soft skills, person skills, to anticipate like the emotional needs, the ego needs,
Yeah,
all of those different facets. And that it is amazing to me, just to see how opportunities land for
yeah. And
special
then
gifted
what I
people
did,
like you.
what I did is also, like, for example, if I knew that like the vocal producer was gonna be there,
Mhm.
for one of the first things I would communicate with the producer, since he or she is the one that knows the artist the most, and just asking, okay, so what do I expect, what is that this artist likes or doesn't like. I mean, so then he would tell me, oh, like just be direct to the point, don't say much in between, don't try to oh, okay, so I would try to get as much information as I could before I
Yeah.
started working with the artist, and then from that point, then you start using your own judgment,
Yeah. So
because
smart.
there are times that they get frustrated. There are times that they get cranky, or they get stuck.
Mhm.
And that's when you go like, you know what? Why don't we move on and we'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
Things like that they can just like relax a little bit more.
Mhm. Mhm. Very cool. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Oh,
Hey, I was getting up to speed on your Instagram this week, and I see that you have a musical family. If I'm not correct, you have a guitar playing son. Is that right?
yes,
Tell
yes,
me about him.
yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, I have. Uh, Everybody in my family is musical. I'll
Mhm.
start with my son Mauricio. Right now, he is the musical director for an artist. His name is Danny Ocean, and they've been touring. And he is, not because he's my son. This is just a professional opinion. Um, he's an amazing guitar player, and having now the experience to be the music director for an artist, not only that he's grown as a musician, but also like the leadership skills to be the person communicating with the artist, with the management, with the band, and he's being extremely busy,
Mhm.
touring a lot. And I think that this is the beginning for him for something huge. I see him keep on going up.
Yeah.
So, and he's a big dude. He's like 6'4", but he's like to me a teddy bear.
Yeah.
Like such a tender personality. And then my husband, he's a seven Grammy Award winner. He's a recording engineer, mixer, producer.
Mhm.
The latest one that he won was with the latest album with Gloria Estefan that he did.
Mhm.
Kind of like her greatest hits with a Brazilian flavor.
Mm.
He's also worked with Shakira. He's worked with so many artists. And then my youngest son, Sebastian, he's an actor, singer, and he does musical theater. And, he is like in that process of where he is like working hard and trying to uh, set his foot in the industry. Also, he does voiceovers. He's an actor. So yeah, actually, for that session for Gloria Stefan, um, I was able to sing background vocals with both of them. With both of them, Mauricio also
Wow.
sings. So that was a fun project. We brought other singers also as part of the project, but they were part of it. You know.
Oh, man, what a great household. That's an exciting household to
Because
come from.
this is my husband's studio.
Uh-huh. That is awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Leyla, it has been such a pleasure chatting with you. You're just beautiful. I love your story. I love everything that you're doing. Um, the last question I have for you that I've been asking lately is what makes you unstoppable?
Okay, I don't want to get preachy here, but definitely it's my faith.
Mhm.
Um, uh, my faith is what keeps me grounded, is what helps me get through those like not only like the ups but especially the downs of life, career, everything in general. So my faith is what gets me to persevere, to push through,
Mhm.
and just not giving up, because my purpose is to give glory to God in everything that I do, whether it's in the industry or whether I'm at church or, even here in this platform, I'm talking about God,
Mhm.
you know. So definitely my faith is what makes me unstoppable.
Beautiful answer. I love that so much. Well, again, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your time and just your stories, your insight. I know that everybody's going to love this interview. Thank you to everybody who joined us live tonight. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. It was wonderful. And I truly hope that we get to meet in person sometime soon. That would be
Yes,
amazing.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Anytime. You have my info, I have your info. We'll connect.
Yep, and we'll stay connected on the socials too, and I will be watching all the, amazing music that you and your incredible family are putting out in the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. This is truly amazing. I can thank
Oh, thank you. It was my honor. All right, everybody, good night until, next week. We'll see you next week at the same time, and, have a wonderful week. Good night.
you. Good night.